I caught my girlfriend of 8 years cheating on me with my best friend at his wedding. And as if that wasn't enough, I found out all of my friends had known and had been laughing behind my back. So, I decided not to confront them right away. Instead, I planned to drop a bombshell at the wedding, not just to ruin his day, but to destroy his entire life. Back in college, I was part of a close-knit group of friends from my department, and we've kept in touch ever since. There are 7 of us, 4 women and 3 men. One of the guys, let's call him Ethan, was my college roommate. We were practically inseparable during those years. Ethan has been my best friend since then, and recently, I attended his wedding. This is where everything started to go wrong. For the past 8 years, I've been dating one of the women from the group, Nicole. She and I have been together since our second year of college. Initially, she was the one closer to the group, but as our relationship grew, I naturally became a part of it too. As for Ethan, he was always there. We'd hang out together, and the bond between us had only grown stronger over time. Despite a few rough patches, Nicole and I had been through a lot together and made it work. For the last year, I've been talking to Nicole about marriage. She told me she wasn't ready. This really bothered me. I couldn't understand why. Both of us were doing well career-wise. I've been running my dad's office supplies company for the last 2 years, and I make more money than most people I know. I thought it was time to take the next step and get married, especially after being together for 8 years. We've even been living together for the last 4, but every time I brought up the idea of marriage, she shut it down. She said I was rushing it, but it didn't make sense to me. We'd been together for 8 years, and we were stable in every other area of life. Our finances were solid, and we both had good careers. I don't see why it would be such a big deal to get married. She even told me that I should focus more on my work, but to me, that was absurd. I was already doing better than most people my age. Despite the tension and bickering over this, we never broke up. But deep down, I felt like Nicole was refusing to commit to me after all this time. I had no idea, though, that she might be cheating. We argued, sure, but that seemed normal. I never once thought she would betray me, especially not with someone so close. But that all changed at Ethan's wedding. At the wedding, I discovered something I never imagined. Nicole had been cheating on me. Worse, she was cheating with my best friend, Ethan, the groom himself. I found out just a few days ago when I walked out into the parking lot to buy some medicine for my migraine. I had forgotten my meds, and the pain had gotten unbearable, so I needed to get something to ease it. I didn't expect to find them there, but when I turned the corner, I saw them, making out in my car. I could have confronted them right then and there, but I didn't. Instead, I decided to wait and handle it my way, strategically. The next day, I went to Ethan's wedding, and that's when I dropped the bomb. Everyone was shocked, but it wasn't just about ruining his wedding day. It was about taking back control and making sure everyone knew the truth. For some background, Nicole and I had arrived at the hotel the day before the wedding. We were supposed to go to the rehearsal dinner, but I wasn't feeling well. I suffer from severe migraines, and after the trip, I was exhausted. I decided to skip the dinner and rest up. Later that evening, my migraine worsened. I realized I had forgotten my medication, so I decided to leave the hotel to pick some up. That's when I ended up in the parking lot, and that's when I caught them. I must have stood there for about 45 seconds, just processing everything. As soon as I realized what was happening in the car, I turned around and started walking away. I had no idea what to do with what I had just seen. I don't think they noticed me, as they were too caught up in each other. Luckily, the rehearsal dinner had already wrapped up by that point, so I decided to go to one of my friends' rooms. I hoped talking to them might help me get some clarity and find the strength to confront Ethan and Nicole when they came back. The only people I cared about were Nicole and Ethan. As soon as they realized, but when I reached the door, I heard voices from inside and realized that the whole group was already there. Coincidentally, they were talking about Nicole and Ethan. Not only were they discussing them, but they were also laughing at my expense, talking about how clueless I had been. They had known about everything all along, and they'd been covering for them the entire time. My other close friend, Kyle, made a joke about how they were bound to get caught eventually because of all the sneaking around they had been doing. Apparently, they'd even hooked up when I left early at the engagement party. It was disgusting. They were casually talking about it like it was just some funny story, as if I wasn't sitting right there and none of it mattered to me. I was completely horrified. I didn't want to confront them right then, so I quietly walked away from the door. I'm sure they didn't even notice me because they were all drunk, but that didn't matter. I had just discovered something far worse than I could have imagined. That night was one of the worst of my life. I went back to my room, tried to hold it together for a bit, and ended up crying for about 15 minutes. But then I stopped myself. I wasn't going to let anyone see how hurt I was. Instead, I started making a plan. I was going to teach them all a lesson they'd never forget. When Nicole came back to the room later, I pretended everything was normal. We went to bed without saying a word about what had happened. The next day, the day of the wedding, I greeted everyone like usual. The day was going fine until it came time for the ceremony to begin. I decided to stand up before the ceremony and asked to give a speech in honor of my friend. This wasn't the traditional time for a speech, so it definitely raised a few eyebrows. But Ethan, thinking I was going to give a heartfelt farewell speech, agreed to let me speak. That was a huge mistake. Instead of what he expected, I started talking about what I had seen the night before, about Nicole and Ethan in the parking lot, and about what I had overheard our friends saying later on in the room. I brought up the things they had discussed about their hookups, even during the engagement party. The room fell silent, and the group of friends who had been laughing behind my back now looked ashamed. But I didn't care about them. I didn't even care about the rest of the wedding guests. Ed, what I was doing, they tried to stop me. Nicole, who was right next to me, tried to get me to sit down, telling me to shut up as if that would make everything go away. Ethan, on the other hand, totally flipped out. He started accusing me of being jealous, of trying to ruin his wedding because I was upset that Nicole wouldn't propose to me. He played the victim, and I could see that his defense was falling apart. It became clear that he was only overcompensating for something he couldn't deny. In the end, his fiancée realized what had happened. She walked off the stage, leaving him standing there. Ethan ran after her, and the whole thing quickly descended into chaos. But honestly, I couldn't care less. The damage had already been done, and I knew I'd made the right call. They'd all been laughing behind my back, so now it was their turn to deal with the consequences. I just shook Nicole off of me, made my way to the parking lot where I'd already packed my things and stashed my bags before the ceremony. I didn't want to deal with the wedding anymore, so I got in my car and drove back home. It's been 3 days since then, and for the first 2 days, I didn't hear from anyone. But yesterday, Nicole finally reached out. She admitted that she and Ethan had been wrong, but she said what I did was downright psychotic. Apparently, I hadn't just ruined the wedding, I destroyed his life. Now, his parents won't have anything to do with him, and his fiancée has already dumped him. He's broken and homeless, and the worst part is, he had been counting on the wedding to bail him out financially. To give you some context, Ethan is a total gold digger. He and his fiancée didn't meet through their parents earlier this year like they told everyone. They actually met on a dating app. His fiancée, who's 6 years older than him, had received an ultimatum from her parents. Either settle down and get married or keep fooling around with different men each week. If she continued her wayward lifestyle, she'd get herself disinherited, and the inheritance would go to her sister instead. So, she had been looking for someone who would be okay with an open marriage, but she had no real interest in marrying. That was until she met Ethan. Ethan wasn't looking for a traditional marriage either. He'd been unemployed for over a year, trying out various jobs but never sticking with anything. All he really wanted was to marry someone rich and live off them. His fiancée's family, who were quite wealthy, seemed like the perfect solution. After a couple of dates, they both realized that this arrangement could work for them. They were able to meet each other's needs. She needed a rich husband to settle down with, and he needed a wealthy woman to marry for financial security. For a while, everything seemed to be going well for both of them, until I exposed him at the wedding. Since neither of their families knew about their arrangement, Ethan's fiancée had no choice but to leave. There was no way her parents would approve of her marrying a man like him, especially after I publicly humiliated both of them. So, even though their arrangement had worked for a while, it all fell apart in the public eye. Ethan had been staying with his fiancée for a couple of months, but after the fiasco at the wedding, even his parents wouldn't take him back in. Now, he's got nowhere to go, and finding a job won't be easy. He's not really qualified for anything substantial, and even if he does find a job, it's likely going to be low-paying. So now I'm being accused of ruining his life because I was insensitive. Nicole thinks I should have just confronted them in person instead of publicly humiliating them at the wedding. Even our friends don't want to speak to either of them anymore. Ethan's life is in total chaos right now, and for some reason, Nicole thinks I should feel bad about it. But honestly, I don't feel bad for Ethan. If anything, I've done him a favor. All he has to do is pick himself up, get a job, and do something with his life instead of relying on others for everything. I don't think it's a bad thing that he's been exposed. He's an adult and needs to face the consequences of his actions. As for Nicole, she thinks I should feel guilty for what happened, but I don't. The only part that does bother me is the public humiliation of both families. I'm sure the speech I made didn't reflect well on either of them, and I feel kind of bad about how it must have affected Ethan's parents, especially since I know them, and they are really nice people. They didn't deserve to be dragged into this mess, and I feel a little guilty about that. I think I could have handled the situation differently, maybe by confronting them privately instead of making it so public. But when I think about everything that happened, the years of betrayal, the way they all laughed behind my back, and how Nicole kept refusing to commit to me despite all we had been through, I don't feel sorry for them. They brought this on themselves. I wasn't the one who started any of this. They were, and now they have to face the music. I'm honestly not sure how long this has been going on, but I only found out a few things from overhearing my friends talking about it. They were laughing and making light of the situation, saying some stupid stuff. The only thing that stood out to me was the comment about the engagement party. I left early from that event because of a migraine. I've had this issue for years, and I've seen doctors for it. It's just something I deal with when I'm in loud environments for too long. It's a normal thing for me, and I need rest, so I often have to leave early. I've never thought anything was off with Nicole staying behind, as she would always come back later. But now, looking back, I'm starting to think that this whole thing might have been going on for much longer than I realized. I really don't know how long, but it's fine now. It's over, and they can do whatever they want, even though I don't think Nicole is the kind of woman Ethan would truly want in the long run. He's always been about finding a wealthy woman, and while Nicole isn't poor, she's definitely not as rich as he wants his partners to be. She's also made it clear that she doesn't want to be the sole breadwinner, saying the pressure of it is too much for her. I used to think that was admirable, but I don't think Ethan would see it the same way. And besides, Ethan is much more of a drama king than I am, so I don't think Nicole will put up with him for long. But now, that's their problem to figure out. Update. It's been 2 days since I posted, and I still haven't replied to Nicole's message about what happened with Ethan. Honestly, I'm not sorry. I was upset, and I reacted in a harsh way. If that reflects badly on others, that's really not my concern. Sure, it must have hurt Ethan's parents, but at the end of the day, I can't feel too bad about that. Even though they were nice people, Ethan wasn't a good guy, and he deserved what happened. Right now, I'm not in the mood to apologize to anyone, least of all his parents. I did text Nicole, though, but only to tell her that she needs to come over soon and pick up all of her stuff. Now that we're no longer together, I don't want her staying here, and I couldn't stand seeing her things lying around. I packed everything up into boxes and set it aside so when she comes, she can just take the boxes and leave. I haven't blocked her yet because I need to know when she plans on coming by, but once she gets her things, she'll be blocked just like everyone else. Ethan was the first one I blocked, and the rest of them followed. The more time has passed, the more everything's been hitting me. I wasn't just betrayed by one person, but by my girlfriend, my best friend, and all the people I thought of as family. That's been tough to process, but thankfully my actual family has been really supportive. They've been checking in on me, making sure I'm doing okay and taking care of myself. I'm grateful for that, at least. It's nice to know that I have people who care about me, and that's been helping me get through all of this. Update 2. Hi. So today, almost 9 days after the incident, Nicole texted me in the morning and said she would be coming over in the evening to pick up her things. I was fine with that, and since she hadn't tried to contact me for the past 9 days, I assumed she would just take her things and leave. However, when she showed up and I started handing her the boxes, she told me she wanted to go through the house, just in case I missed anything. I was a bit skeptical about this because letting her in sounded like it was going to take more time than necessary, but I figured I might have missed something, so I couldn't refuse. I wanted to get everything done in one go. So I let her in. She looked through the house, took a few more things I'd missed, and I thought that would be the end of it. She'd pack up those things and leave. Instead, she started lingering in the living room, holding the items in her hands. It felt awkward, so I asked if she was planning to leave. That's when she said she really wanted to talk to me. She hoped that now, with some time past, I would be more open to addressing the situation. This was infuriating. She spoke as if years had passed since the incident, when in reality it had barely been 2 weeks. I didn't feel like there was anything to address. She cheated on me with my best friend, who was about to get married, and that was the problem, not me. I told her that I'd been very clear when I texted her. I'd said she was only welcome here to collect her things, and now that she'd done that, there was no reason for her to stay or talk to me anymore, but then she started arguing with me. She said that even though she'd cheated, I wasn't completely perfect either, and I needed to stop acting like it was entirely her fault. Up until that point, I'd been trying to stay calm and civil, but with every word she spoke, I became more irritated. Finally, when she said that, I completely lost it. I started screaming at her because I couldn't believe she had the nerve to imply any of this was somehow my fault. I'm ready to admit that I'm not perfect, but the way she said it made it clear she was trying to imply that I somehow drove her to cheat. Even before she started arguing, I had a feeling I knew what she was going to say. Like I mentioned in my original post, we had been having issues because I wanted to settle down. I wanted to get married and start a family soon, but she wasn't ready for that. I knew she would bring that up. I'd been thinking about it for a few days already, but I saw myself as the victim in this situation. In her eyes, though, she was the real victim. She wasn't ready to commit, and she thought it was a big decision she wasn't sure about because she wanted to live her life a little before getting married and starting a family. For the last 8 years, she had only been with me. We had always been focused on each other, and now she was saying she didn't even know who she was. Somehow, this was supposed to be my fault. I couldn't believe she thought these were valid points. If she had such a huge issue with committing to me after 8 years together, then clearly we wanted different things out of life. There were only 2 ways to address that. We could have kept talking about it and tried to find a solution, or we could have just broken up. But instead, she chose to cheat on me, so she could keep the best of both worlds and do whatever she wanted. So, to keep it short, I was still trying to be understanding and supportive, but she kept playing the victim, acting like we were both equally at fault. It really made me angry, and I ended up shouting at her until my voice was hoarse, but she didn't stop and just kept defending herself, claiming she was stressed because of me, and that Ethan somehow understood her in ways I never could. I kept telling her to leave, but she wouldn't budge. She just kept saying that I wasn't perfect and that I had been just as toxic as she had been. Honestly, I thought about calling the cops, but I was so worked up that I didn't even think of it at the time. After a while, I just had enough. I walked to the door, opened it, and stood there, silently waiting for her to get the hint. It took her a few minutes, and it was tough not to say anything while she tried to come up with more excuses. I just stayed silent, standing by the door, waiting for her to leave. Finally, she did. Before she left, she said I could act like I was a saint, but deep down, we both knew it took 2 people to ruin the relationship. I agreed, but I didn't say anything. Would have just started another argument, and I didn't have the energy for that. She left, I shut the door, and finally started calming down. Talking to her really riled me up, and even when we were together, she had a hard time admitting when she was wrong. Back then, I thought it was kind of cute, but now, it just felt frustrating. I'm really glad she left when she did because I honestly might have snapped. Anyway, it's done now. She's gone, and I'm relieved. I've already blocked her, and now I'm focusing on myself more. I've been going to the gym a lot lately. It helps me stay distracted. I've also started journaling. It's going to be a slow process, but I know that I'll eventually get over everything. After all, it was an 8-year relationship, so it's bound to leave some sort of mark, whether I like it or not. All I can do is try not to let that mark affect me too much. Update 3. It's been 2 years since my last update, and I've been thinking about posting here for a while, but I finally got around to it today. So, here's how things have been going. Work is amazing, better than ever. I'm really happy with how things are progressing. I've become a fitness enthusiast, and it feels great. I haven't had any contact with those college people in the last 2 years, and honestly, I don't care about how any of them are doing. My family has been there for me through everything, supporting me, and that's all that matters to me. I don't have many friends now, just a couple from school and a few good coworkers, but they genuinely care about me, and that's what counts. Over the past few weeks, I've also started seeing someone. Dating was completely off my radar for the last year because I was still dealing with the aftermath of my last relationship, but a friend introduced me to her cousin at her birthday party, and she's amazing, really sweet and kind, and for some reason, I just felt drawn to her from the moment we met. My friend set us up on a date, and we've been seeing each other for a while now. I've told her everything about my last relationship, and because of that, I'm taking things slow. She totally understands and respects my feelings. She's even told me she's willing to wait because she thinks I'm the perfect guy for her. We're also on the same page about things like marriage and kids. She wants them, and so do I. Yeah, I think I've finally found someone who's right for me. As for Nicole and Ethan, they got married a couple of months after my last update, but their marriage didn't even last a year. They got divorced within that time. I found out from a gossiping acquaintance from college, and honestly, I can't say I feel bad for them at all. That would be a lie, but I do hope they learn something from this and stop hurting others like they did to me. That said, I feel like I'm finally over everything. I'm much happier now, and I'm looking forward to what's next. Thank you for watching the video till the end. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on more amazing stories. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to discuss. See you in the next video. Block Story Life.